All right, so today we are on unit 4.1b. 4.1b, and today we are going to solve polynomial equations by factoring. Now, does anyone remember what does the word polynomial mean? Because a lot of you missed this on your notes quiz. Many terms, okay? It does not mean 4 terms, okay? I saw a lot of 4 terms on there. No, this is many terms. So, essentially, we're doing the same thing as we did yesterday, okay? But they're going to be a little bit more stepped up equations, okay? So, they're going to be a little bit more difficult. So, if your instructions are going to say to solve, so for example 1, I would like you to solve x cubed plus 2x squared minus 15x equals 0. Now, yesterday we were solving quadratic equations. Quadratic equations are basically the equations for parabolographs, so those U-shaped graphs. Today, we are not solving for any particular kind of shape graph, okay? So yesterday you were limited and you could only get either 0, 1, or 2 answers. Today you can get more than that, okay? So yesterday I told you if you get 3 answers, you definitely need to pay attention because you have a mistake. Okay, now let's go ahead and factor. So what's the first thing I can do to factor? Take out an x, okay? Take out an x. Left behind would be x squared plus 2x minus 15 equals 0. Lila, can you bring him back? Okay, now let's factor again. You have to factor completely. So I still have an x. This is a trinomial. So what are your signs going to be? Both plus, both minus, or one of each? One of each, right? So to get to a negative at the end, it has to be one of each. X squared breaks down to x and x. And then think about it. What multiplies the 15 adds to 2? 3 and 5. And the 5 is the bigger number. It would need to be positive because your overall middle is positive. So 5 and 3. Then just like yesterday, break these apart and set each part equal to 0. X equals 0. X plus 5 equals 0. X minus 3 equals 0. And then solve. Do I keep this x equals 0? Yes. Yes. Okay, if you have a variable, so a letter equals a 0, you keep it. Okay, then these, we just do the inverse operation. You'd get x equals negative 5 and x equals positive 3. So there are 3 answers here. 0, negative 5, positive 3. Okay, let's try another one. For number 2, I just want you to factor completely. Factor completely. Okay, if I give you the equation 16x to the 5th minus 250x squared. 16x to the 5th minus 250x squared. First thing I should always look for in factoring is a GCF. First, just looking at numbers. What is the biggest number that will go into both of those? 16 does not go into 250. 4 does not go into 250. 8 does not go into 250. 2! Watch. When you have really big numbers like this, okay, they're even, so start with a 2. Then once your numbers get smaller, if you still have a GCF, you can take out more, okay? So you can always fix it later. So we can take out a 2 and an x squared. Left behind would be 8x cubed minus 125. Can I factor further? Yes, that is a what? Cube. Okay, so we still have 2x squared. Cubes are the SOAP factoring, so put in your SOAP signs. Same, which is negative, opposites positive, AP always positive. The first thing is what? No, not 8x cubed. 2x. Okay? Then your second thing is just a 5. The first thing squared. So 2x quantity squared gives us what? 4x squared, not the 2. Okay, make sure you square everything. Combination of both. What do I actually do with those numbers? Add, subtract, multiply, or divide? Multiply them together. So 2 times x times 5 gives us 10x. And then finally the second thing squared. So 5 squared is 25. Now, can I factor any further?
No.
Nope, you're done. This one I am not asking you to solve. I just wanted you to factor completely. Factor. The point of that was to factor. Okay, let's try another one. Now we're going back to solve. So for number 3, I'm going to go back to solving. I would like you to solve x cubed minus 3x squared minus 16x plus 48 equals 0. Now, even though the instructions on number 2 just said factor completely, you could also know that you weren't solving because why? Does anyone have any idea? How could you know that you weren't needing to solve? Avon? It's not equal to 0. It's not equal to anything. There's no equal sign in the entire problem. Okay, so if it's no equal sign in the entire problem, it's just an expression. So that means you cannot solve. Okay, there's nothing to solve for. There's no equals. This one has an equals. So whether or not you read the solve and knew what that meant, if there's an equals, that means you have to get x by itself. You're actually solving for something. So is there a GCF I can take out from all of these? No. So now we're going to do, remember, if we count up our terms, 1, 2, 3, 4, what kind of factoring can you do? Grouping. Okay, so look at the first 2 and look at your second 2 for your last half. From the first 2, I can take out an x squared. Left behind would be x minus 3. Now, a lot of people forgot this on their quiz or on their test, but let's make sure and remember, this is the sign that has to come out. So it has to be a negative. And what is the GCF there? 16 times, remember, we're always trying to get into here. So if you knew I needed to get x minus 3 in my other parentheses, hopefully you should realize, oh, I bet a 16 comes out. Magic like that. Okay? X positive divided by negative gives you a negative 3. We still have equals 0. Now, make one group. So one of your groups is the x minus 3. Your other group is x squared minus 16 equals 0. Now, can I solve yet?
No.
Not just yet. You have to factor still. So x minus 3 times x squared minus 16 breaks down to be x plus 4 and x minus 4, all equals 0. Then break these apart. Set each part equal to 0. And solve. So we're going to get x equals 3, x equals negative 4, x equals positive 4. So 3 different answers here. 3, negative 4, positive 4. Questions so far? No? Okay, let's try another one. For number 4, again, we're going to solve. Okay, so if I would like to, to solve for example number 4, solve 4x to the 6th power minus 20x to the 4th plus 24x squared equals 0. 4x to the 6th minus 20x to the 4th plus 24x squared equals 0. So always start with looking for a GCF. Is there a GCF between these? Yes. What is the GCF? 4x squared. Okay, if you take out 4x squared, left behind will be x to the 4th minus 5x squared plus 6 equals 0. This can factor again. We still have the 4x squared. Now, what does x to the 4th break down to in the parentheses? X squared and x squared. If you have trouble trying to figure out what it's going to break down to, it's always whatever exponent is on the middle term. Okay? It's always going to be that way. It has to be. Okay? Because that's how you get your middle term. Then both their signs will be negative. Since the back is positive, they both have to be the same as the middle. And what multiplies to 6 adds to 5? 3 and 2. Can I factor any further? No. So we're going to break these up. Set each part equal to 0. So 4x squared equals 0. I'm just going to deal with that one to start with. If I divide by 4, okay, because really you do have to divide here. If I divide away the 4, 0 over 4 gives you what? Just 0. Okay, remember, 0 over is 0. 0 under is when it's undefined. How do I undo a square? You root it. Okay? What is the square root of 0? 0. That one is pretty easy. Okay, x equals 0. Same thing here. Set it equal to 0, so x squared minus 2 equals 0. Add your 2 to the other side. So we got x squared equals positive 2. Root this. Now, there is a rule that says if you introduce a root, you must put plus or minus in your next step. Okay? If you introduce a root, put plus or minus in the next step. Okay? If you introduce a square root, put plus or minus in the next step. You have to. Now, did I have to put plus or minus on the 0? No, because that doesn't make any sense. Okay, there is no such thing as plus or minus 0. So that's why I didn't have to do it here. But for this one, what is the square root of 2? Do we know that? Is that a nice whole number? No, so you just leave it as plus or minus root 2. Just leave it like that. Okay, and then the last one, x squared minus 3 equals 0. Move the 3. We got x squared equals a positive 3. Root both sides. You introduce a root. You put plus or minus in the next step. So x equals plus or minus, and root 3 does not break down. So it stays plus or minus root 3. Now, if I asked you, how many solutions does this have? 5. Okay? Plus or minus root 2 is actually positive root 2 and negative root 2. Okay? So make sure you understand when you write plus or minus, that's a shortcut for writing 2 different answers. Okay? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different answers there. Okay? Sometimes we will ask you, how many roots are there? This would be 5. Okay? So make sure you understand plus or minus does indicate that there is more than 1. Okay? Number 5, I want to know what are the real number solutions for 2x to the 5th equals 12x cubed minus 16x. 2x to the 5th equals 12x cubed minus 16x. Okay, just like yesterday, before I can solve, what does my equation have to be equal to? 0. So I'm going to move these. Okay, so subtract your 12x cubed, add a 16x to both sides. Okay, if I do that, you want to write your answers in descending order. So 2x to the 5th, write your problem in descending order, minus 12x cubed plus 16x equals 0. Then I can factor. What's the GCF I can take out here? 2x. A 2x. If I take out 2x, left behind will be x to the 4th minus 6x squared plus 8 equals 0. That can be factored. You still have a 2x on the outside. Make sure you don't lose that. That's where a lot of mistakes can happen. Okay, x to the 4th breaks down to x squared and x squared. What multiplies to 8 and adds to 6?
4 and 2.
4 and 2. So minus 4 and minus 2 has to be negative for both.